Two people killed in homophobic attack near central Bratislava nightclub. This was written by Czech news agency, published on October 13th, 2022, but I'm reading from brnodaily.com. Once again, we have another sick, twisted, white supremacist terrorist who commits a horrible, heinous act of violence to further his sick, twisted worldview. What will we do to stop it? We need to fight white supremacy. It is literally killing people all across the world. Let's go to Bratislava. Two people were shot dead and one wounded after a 19-year-old man opened fire near a nightclub in central Bratislava on Wednesday night. The assailant went on the run after the attack, but has been found dead by police today, according to police spokesman Michal Slivka. The incident occurred on Zamojska Street, leading from the historical center to the Bratislava Castle and Parliament building. According to Slovak media, responsibility for the attack was claimed on Twitter by a young man, Jiraj K., who had released material calling for violence against the Jewish and LGBT plus communities, including a 65-page manifesto. He published posts before the attack suggesting that it was premeditated and continued tweeting after the attack, but his account has now been blocked. The two victims were shot dead near Teplaren, a nightclub for the LGBT plus community. Both men were reported by the SME newspaper to be under 30. One of them was named online as Matusz Horvath, a student at the philosophical faculty of Comenius University. Rest in peace to both of these men. A waitress who was working at one of the establishments on the street was injured, but her condition is reported to be not life-threatening. Members of the public have been leaving flowers and candles outside the club since this morning. Witnesses reported hearing the shooting during the incident. One of them told the television station Jorge that the shooter was using a gun with a laser sight and aiming carefully at the victims. According to media reports, police are investigating the possibility that the gunman was using a gun belonging to his father, formerly a political candidate for the far-right Vlach party. Writing on Instagram, President Zuzana Kaputova responded to the attack by criticizing hate speech in society and in politics. I am thinking of the innocent victims of yesterday's shooting in Bratislava and those who no longer feel safe after it. For 3 years, I have been saying that even words are weapons, that we politicians are also responsible for every single word we use. Nevertheless, many recklessly fill this space with hatred. Now, this story hits close home to me because on my channel, I speak about white supremacist terrorists. And in the United States, we had a major white supremacist terrorist attack this year in Buffalo, where a white supremacist terrorist walked into a supermarket and killed 10 innocent black people, right? This story also hits home to me because my brother is gay. My brother, while never having traveled to Europe, could be a victim of a terrorist attack like this, because these white supremacist terrorists are literally everywhere. This is not paranoia. This is not fear. As we will look into the manifesto of the person who did this terrorist attack, he is a part, or he believes he is a part of a global interconnected network of people who are like-minded, hate-filled, and want to see the world burn. This is why we must continue to fight white supremacy. It is literally killing a people across continents. And while people in the media are consumed with Kanye West and him talking about anti-Semitic tweets or whatever, we have actual, real white supremacist terrorists, sleeper cells all across the world who are on these chans, 4chan, 8chan, and all the other parabolic underground websites that are continuing to spew these messages underground. These people are waiting to attack. They're just waiting for the inspiration and the balls and the guts to do this. And this is why we need to stop it. My wife told me not to do this, but I'm going to try to speed read through as much of this manifesto as possible to give you a clearer picture of these people's worldview. I am not trying to disseminate their ideas, propagate their ideas, or promote their ideas. What I am trying to do, though, is show a light on how these people think, why it's so sick and twisted, and what we can do to stop it, and why their ideas just don't make sense, and why it's only causing more harm to their cause, period. Let's begin. It's the Jews, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. They all have names and addresses. The people responsible for our situation have names and addresses. The Jews responsible have names and addresses. Everybody knows what the problem is, but nobody is willing to do anything to stop it. We all know who the main people responsible are, whose heads and noses need to be at the chopping block, who to blame for this whole mess, who to blame for the unchecked rise in non-white immigration to Europe and the US, who to blame for the rise of degeneracy F-word tree, transgenderism, deviancy of all forms. Who to blame for the mass brainwashing of the public through media, newspaper, and now social media? Who to blame for enslaving us financially? And more recently, who to blame for pushing a form of complete social control, a good boy pass for people who just take a totally safe jab so that Zog knows they are good, obedient cattle? Everyone with eyes knows who is responsible, yet still nothing changes for now. The mindset of our people, and by our people I mean those who already know what is happening and what has to change, what goals must be met, is still too poisoned with the propaganda of our society. Pause right here. I want to briefly talk. Many of the white supremacists, terrorists, are obsessed with this idea that society is becoming degenerate, that society is becoming less pure, as if there ever was a pure society, when they want to talk about the past and how pure the past was. Whether they're talking about a century ago or a millennia ago, things were never pure. All the things that they talk about, homosexual behavior, transgenderism, interracial relationships, immigration, all of these things have been happening literally since the beginning of humankind. Literally since the beginning of humankind, there have been gay people, transgender people. People have literally moved across the planet. The time that they think about as the golden age of white European civilization was the time of colonialism, was the time when literally millions of Europeans were moving across the world. But what is that sort of immigration? Oh, that's positive immigration, because they honestly believe in their hearts that white people are superior to all others on the planet. I will continue. A critical situation. As a race, we find ourselves in a critical situation. What the Jews and their traitorous allies want is power and wealth. For them, the destruction and subjugation of the white race is simply logical. We are the greatest threat to their power structure and always have been. What they need is an obedient mass of humanoid cattle who will obey without question, who will work without question, who will consume the latest products without question. And for the K word, there is an added layer of both revenge for the centuries of rightful expulsions and exterminations that white Europeans carried out against these vermin, and of religious supremacy, which dictates them as the chosen people destined to rule over the hapless, gutless Goyim. With this in mind, their actions make a lot of sense. They atomize us so that we don't fight collectively through the use of propaganda meant to turn us against each other. Radical feminism versus MGTOW. They dilute our power by importing or empowering millions of shit-skinned hordes who then act as the ethnic equivalent of strike breakers by being deliberately inserted into white majority areas with their importation enforced by laws that prohibit discrimination. They weaken us with propaganda that pushes degenerate ideologies and lifestyles like transgenderism, sexual liberation, F-wordetry, and others. They control us with measures like the Jew-created and dangerous COVID-19 vaccines, just to figure out how many people are willing to resist and how many people are not willing to, so they can tailor their moves accordingly. And last but not least, they demoralize and de-radicalize us, pacifying people who would otherwise revolt with numerous pressure release valves, voting, democracy, complaining online, electoral politics, civil discourse, and their made-up sense of morality that keeps us from becoming effective. All of this is enforced by traitorous governments and vast security and intelligence agencies whose sole purpose is to keep the wheels of the system greased and going, and to prevent groups of individuals that could throw a wrench into their plans from ever becoming effective or gaining power. What would the K-word's final plans be? What do they get from all of this? A world populated by obedient consumers who will work, consume, and not rise up, who will produce profit for the chosen ones at the top. I want to say that this is the mind of a young man who has been brainwashed, literally brainwashed by conspiracy theories he sees online. This is why it's important to fight misinformation that we see online. This young person, and we'll find out how young he is later, was literally just, his mind was warped by all of the stuff he sees on Poll and all the stuff he sees on 8chan and all this other stuff. I want to break down some of these ideas. First and foremost, the idea that the Jews are the people who are controlling the world, and the Jews are the people who are making this world degenerate, making us into cattle, making us into people who are slaves of their will in commerce and capitalism. It's a fallacy and it's a lie. First and foremost, they are not the richest people on the planet. If anybody knows, if anybody who has Google, if anybody with a modicum of intelligence can just do a quick Google search and find out who the richest people in the world are, we will find Saudis, we will find Arabs, we will find oil barons. The richest people in the world, the people who control wealth, are not Jewish people. Literally, you can look this up. If we look at the richest families in the world, we will find the Saudi royal family. But we never hear any conspiracy theories about how the Saudis are controlling the global economy, how the Saudis are controlling the media, even though their money is literally everywhere. The Saudis own the biggest stake in Twitter. Nobody talks about the Russians, how the Russians control the natural power sources such as natural gas, and they're some of the biggest natural gas exporters in the world. But nobody talks about how Russians are controlling the world, which just goes to show that these people are racist. These people just hate Jewish people because nothing of it is based in fact. And if you want to point in history and talk about how the Jews were expelled from country and place to place, it was never done right. It was never done for any serious reason. It was done because of hatred, fear, and ignorance. And just for people who were in power to say these people are the enemy. Before there was globalization, before people were interacting with people of different races in places and spaces in Europe, the anti-Semitism or anti-Jewishness was the precursor to the modern racism we have today. You couldn't point at that demographic group such as black people or Asian people or Hispanic people and that sort of thing because there were no these different groups of people. But what you could always do at that time is point at gypsies and Jews and say these people are the ones who are destroying your society, and that would keep the people in power in charge to then keep the people under them focused on them rather than focused on the top. It's so ridiculous. I also want to point out, if you feel like you can't compete in this new modern society, if you're a loser, this guy was a loser who felt like voting, democracy, using the internet to voice his concerns, electoral politics, and basic human civil discourse is not enough to convince people of your ideas, so now it's time to kill people. You are a loser. You are a loser. Anybody who has to resort to violence as their last hope of convincing people that their ideas are right is a loser, is an idiot. They are what they accuse us to be. A lot of these white supremacist terrorists say around blacks never relax because black people are inherently violent. But because you cannot master civil discourse, because you cannot have an actual intelligent discussion to convince people that your ideas are right, you have to be brainwashed by memes you find on 4chan. You have to be brainwashed by some people who are typing from their mother's basement onto 8chan. You're influenced by that, and therefore you go commit violence. And you call us low IQ. You call us subhuman. Take a look in the mirror. Please take a look in the mirror. I'll continue reading. White people will be subjugated, atomized, degenerated, or eradicated. We will work, we will do advanced work that N-words and assorted S-skins cannot do, but we will never do anything to resist their tyranny. We will be too weak to fight back, divided and conquered by masses of bugmen and brown garbage, too demoralized by the world around us to do anything, too few in numbers compared to our enemies to make a difference. While we slave away at the human plantation with the S-skins, the K-words and their traitorous allies will enjoy their lavish lives at our expense, fulfilling their goals of ruling over the Goyim. These plans typo, but maybe he's an ESL learner. He's from wherever, Slovakia, right? These plans is currently being implemented all over the white European world, in the West by the United States and in the East by Russia, the two Jewish centers of power. This is ZOG, Zionist Occupation Government. This is JOG, Jewish Occupation Government. This is the system, the New World Order, if you prefer that term. That is what they want, and that is what they will get unless something changes. The longer this goes on, the longer we wait before trying to do this, the weaker we will be when the time comes to doing something. And if we wait for too long, we will be too outnumbered, too politically diluted, too atomized to do anything. Think of it this way. The body of our people has been infiltrated by a particularly nasty Talmudic parasite. After decades of unchecked infection, the immune system failed at its job and the body is in disarray. The parasite has spread to the entire body. Our people's immunity has been weakened, allowing opportunistic racial pathogens to grow with no limits. Some areas of the body have become gangrenous, rotten. In such a severe case, what the body needs is radical, rapid treatment. For gangrenous areas, a debridement is necessary. Debridement is the removal of the gangrenous tissue and also some healthy nearby tissue which may have been infected and is thus possibly dangerous in the long run. The removal of some healthy tissue ensures that there is nothing waiting to strike at the body in the future. And this is exactly the procedure that our race, the white race, will have to undergo. Pause here. This is all BS. It's all BS. First and foremost, there's no such thing as different races. There are no different races of people. Biologically, we are all the same. Biologically, we are all the same. If we're talking about differences in skin pigmentation and that sort of thing, these are only surface level. And please watch the video I made about what is race. Is race real? Biologists of all sorts have unanimously come to the conclusion, the scientific, factual conclusion, that there is no inherent differences between races of people, period. If he's talking about cultural differences, cultures transform over time. No culture has been static since its inception because that goes against the very nature of culture. All cultures, like languages, have been influenced by precedent cultures and languages. So none of this makes sense. Europe will not, first and foremost, these people are paranoid about the future of Europe because Europe has declining birth rates and older populations, and there are immigrants moving to Europe. But Europe will not disappear. Just because a bunch of Turkish people, Syrians, Arabs, Sub-Saharan Africans, Latin people move to Europe or the United States or any part of the Western world, these places will not disappear. These places will still be here. How do these people continuously think that because there are immigrants moving into a country that they will no longer be the majority? Why? Because if we look at their history, that's what they did. That's what they did to the United States. That's what they did to Australia. That's what they did to Canada. That's what they did to New Zealand. Yes, but that is not what's happening now. Those were organized colonial efforts. Immigration is when your government allows people to move in. And many of the times, most of the time, the majority of the time, the people who move to these countries in Europe want to assimilate worse. They want to assimilate so bad into the society. They don't want to become pariahs of the state or outliers or radically change the culture. The reason they are leaving Tunisia, the reason they are leaving Turkey, the reason they are leaving Cameroon, Nigeria, the reason they are leaving Venezuela is because they want a better life. They don't want to bring their culture to that place. They want to experience France for France. They want to experience France for France, America for America, and that sort of thing. These cultural changes that happen over time are changes in food, maybe a new loan word. Nobody is trying to impose Sharia on Europe. Nobody is trying to make all people in Europe black. Nobody is trying to do that. These people are literally paranoid. These are sick, paranoid, delusional young white men who then have to go out and kill people because they can't see that after looking at all of these statistics and data, they just need to chill. It's not that serious. Please. I will continue. The coming conflict will exalt a terrible price from our people. It will be a painful experience, and many of our best men and women will lose their lives. But in a total battle like this, where we either win totally or we lose totally, no amount of loss is worse than the complete destruction, subjugation, and erasure of our people. The white race may lose an arm or a leg in this war, but we will survive if we simply fight for our existence. But if we just sit and hope for the best, then our people will die a slow death. We will not survive. Understand that this is a fight for our survival, and we just stay silent and hope that one day a new savior pops up on his own and saves us from the brink of destruction. Then we will surely lose it all. I want to say white people statistically across the planet are some of the richest people on the planet. There's close to, 1 billion white people on the planet. The whitest countries in the world are the richest countries in the world. And there are many places in these countries where you can go and live with only white people and never see a person that looks different than you. Why are these people that have so much of everything so concerned about losing everything? What does that say? What does that say about you? You are born in the European Union. You are born in Slovakia, and you are so obsessed with people who just want to come to your country or other countries to make a better life for themselves that you want to kill them. What a sick person. Our goals. These goals that need to be achieved in order to secure the existence of our people and a future for white children are clear. The total destruction of Zog, Zionist-occupied government in all its forms, from the Western Zog with its power center in the United States and the Eastern Zog with its power center in Russia. The expulsion or physical removal of all alien races from our lands. The expulsion or physical removal of all white traitors who aided in Zog in its destruction for our people. The neutering of all rising threats from non-white countries of the world to ensure European superiority for all of time. The total eradication of all Jews to the last man, woman, and child, and the erasure of all mentions of the Jewish plague from the annals of history, except as a cautionary tale for the future. None of this will ever happen. None of this will ever happen. The threat, though, about this is that a lot of young white men believe that this will happen if they go commit their heinous, violent acts. This is why this is important. This is why I'm reading this story. Water break. There is no way to achieve even one of these required goals without the use of violence at a large scale. There is no way to achieve even one of these required goals without it involving a collapse of, at minimum, the United States and Russia, and preferably also China. How do you plan to deport or remove the tens of millions of racial aliens and others assorted garbage occupying our lands without the use of violence? Do you think they will leave on their own? How about the well-connected K-words in the government? You think that if you somehow manage to magically get yourself elected as an open white revolutionary, the K-words at the top will just vacate their posts? No, you won't get elected because the majority of white people don't agree with you. Only you and your sick friends that you've never met on 4chan and 8chan agree with you. It's not because the K-words or Zog is going to stop you from getting elected. Trust me, radical white right-wing reactionaries get elected all the time. We just saw this in Italy. We saw this with Trump. We see this with Orban. We saw this with Putin, right? Countless times throughout history, right-wing fascist, racists were put in positions of power. If you can't do it, it's obvious. It's honestly one of the easiest things to do. If you're a white man and you run on a platform of, open bigotry, racism, hatred, in a lot of places, not everywhere, but in a lot of places, you will find support. If you are not able to do that, you are a loser. You are actually a loser because it's so easy. How can Orban stay in power? How did Trump win? How did the new prime minister of Italy win? Becoming a white revolutionary is probably very easy politically. If you can't do it, you're just a sad, small dick man. To address the elephant in the room, not only will violence will be required to solve the predicament facing our people, but a huge amount of it will be required. Before anything else, get this fact into your head. How else do you expect to go against the most evil entrenched occupation regime in history, run by a cabal of scheming Jew rats and their traitor allies, covered with an aura of legitimacy based on sham elections and democracy, protected by a vast array of police officers, military officials, a security and intelligence apparatus of unparalleled intricacy and reach, supported by millions of people that have been brainwashed by one of the most insidious and persistent propaganda efforts in history? Just think about it. What is your plan, really? To vote for a politician who will inevitably betray you once someone offers to pay him enough money to, or threatens him or his family, to start a political party which will fall into the cesspit of political squabbles and be undermined by paid and unpaid agents, literal Antifa Jannies who will do it for free, to petition the government which will then promptly throw your pleas into the trash. To plaster the walls and power poles of your neighborhood with stickers which will be ignored by everyone, to complain on the internet endlessly screaming into the void. You know exactly what all this means. You may not like the inevitable conclusion of these facts, but there is no way to ignore them without willingly lying to yourself. To put it simply, there is no way out of this. That does not involve violence. In the end, the solution to all of our problems and the way to achieve all-out goals is violence, targeted at the right people and groups in the right amounts for the right amount of time at the right time. No, no, no. Violence is not the answer. This is my piece. I don't agree with anything he's saying here. Seriously, guy, seriously. The reason you would not get elected with your ideas, the reason why the majority of white supremacists would not get elected is because what they want as a government and system would not work. You would become North Korea. You would become Korea. You will become an isolated part of the global stage. Nobody will want to trade with you or do business with you. We see this with Russia right now. Russia is under heavy sanctions. Hundreds of thousands of their men are leaving. People are protesting the government because of their fascist policies. You would want to create a society, an ethno-state that expelled millions of people or killed them, right? That would be homogeneously pure, whatever that means. So you would commit mass murder and genocide within your own state. And then on top of that, you would be openly racist. So you're not going to trade with Japan. You're not going to trade with China. You're not going to get the rare minerals from Africa. You're not going to get the coal you need and silver you need from South America because you're racist. That is why your government would not work, and that is why you would never get elected, and none of your policies would make sense. Do you see why? Do you see why? What you are saying here is that there's a conspiracy keeping you from power. No, what is keeping you from power are your dumb ideas. Your dumb ideas are keeping you from power. I will continue. They've learned a lot from the mistakes of the interbellum period. They are not naive. They are not our word. They will not play fair and square with us. Our solutions. Now, what should we do with this information in mind? Certainly not sit around and wait for a savior to pop up and fix everything. Decentralize. Say goodbye to named public-facing groups that get infiltrated by Zog agents and dismantled from within. Each man forms his own group from within his close real-life friends. No internet BS. You never know who is behind that screen. Your group should consist of people you know and trust, not random retards recruited using posters and stickers. Recruiters will not come to you. Instead, you approach them. That's the one big advantage of the you don't join the NVA joins you rule. In order for them to get an infiltrator in deep, it would almost certainly have to be one of our own people who went bad after he got in, acting out of personal grudge or for money. H.A. Covington, The Brigade, page 226. I don't know who H.A. Covington is, but I'll say this decentralizing part is what we saw or what we continue to see sometimes with Islamic radical terrorists. You know, ISIS has all in all but been destroyed in Syria, right? As a formal organization, ISIS cannot control territory, but ISIS has decentralized, and there are now terrorist attacks happening from radical Islamic extremists who are just radicalized online or sent out on dummy crash missions to blow themselves up or shoot up a school or something like that, right? So this decentralization of white supremacist terror, we will continue to see attacks like this unless actual governments, actual people put up an intellectual fight and a policy fight against these people. We need to monitor these websites. We need to make sure that people who are hosting these websites are tracked, that there can no longer be, secret IPs or hidden IPs. People have to register whenever they're posting on these hateful boards and that sort of thing. And there also has to be a fight against the misinformation that these racists continue to put out. Because while most of their ideas have been debunked, their ideas are very, very persuasive to people who do not have education, for people who are disaffected, unemployed, young white men who feel like the world is moving past them and feeling like it's unfair that they actually have to compete with people who are not like them, right? Let's continue. Strike at the Zog. Strike at Zog. Strike at its institutions. Strike at its human shields. Strike at the hordes of racial enemies invading our lands. Strike at key leaders that keep the system going. Strike at the rank and file activists. Strike at the system's property. Destroy the government. Target traitors, politicians. Target their families. Target their children, target their property, target the government buildings that host the politicians and bureaucrats, target courthouses, target enemy judges, target activist lawyers, barristers, and attorneys, target voting booths, target political candidates. I have to say right here, pause. This is why the fight against white supremacy is so important. When I bring up white supremacy abroad in other places, people think I'm only talking about anti-black racism. But white supremacists do not have an actual ideology for a better future for white children or white families. They don't care about any of that, actually. They just want to see the world burn. Because when we read these manifestos, there's never the ending of a utopia of white people living on hills and valleys, and none of that. All they talk about is destroy governments, kill judges, kill lawyers, target voting booths. These people are terrorists. They want a blood cult, and that's all they want. So I want to say this is why white supremacy is so dangerous, because there are a lot of non-black judges. There are a lot of non-Jewish lawyers. There are a lot of non-women voters and bureaucrats and politicians. These are including white people. You make the mistake of thinking the white supremacists only want to kill non-white people. No, they have no qualms with killing white traitors, and that term to them is loose, because this guy in Bratislava, Jiraj, killed presumably 2 white guys, shot a white woman because they were white traitors, because they were gay. I'll continue. Water break. Destroy the top echelon of Zog. Target international bankers, target their property, target their families, target their children, target the World Economic Forum, target the UN, target the Rothschilds, target the Rockefellers, target them all, target the Target. Go to Target and target. Destroy their bread and circus, target Hollywood, target I'm not reading that. Destroy Zog auxiliaries, destroy the invaders. Destroy the poisoners. Target pornographers, target porn studios, destroy their incomes, threaten employers who choose to employ cheap non-white labor over white labor. If they refuse to hire white, burn down their properties, burn down their buildings where they employ non-whites, deny them income if they choose to make it from skin labor. If they decide to outsource their dangers. We're not reading all of this. This is ridiculous. Basically, the point is he's targeting the entire world. He's targeting everybody but himself. Because even the white supremacists, if it came down to it, they would start shooting at themselves if they killed the entire world. Because not everybody can fall strictly into these ideological boxes that they create. I'll continue. Accelerate. The only way to win is to tear down this rotten system, tear down the Zog, then offer an alternative for the people. Those with brains will jump the Zog ship before it sinks into the cold depths. First, you must understand the lemming theory. No one explains it better than the man who created it, William Luther Pierce. I will let this excellent infographic do the job for me. Yeah, this is ridiculous. This is just a lot of BS, just all BS. What does all of this mean? Whatever you do should be dedicated to destroying Zog. Not to attract the approval of average people. It doesn't matter. What you must do is weaken Zog's hold on the populace by any means necessary. It is the most important task. You must weaken Zog's stranglehold on society. This is ridiculous. All of this is ridiculous. Accelerate the decline of Zog. Fill the power vacuum. Once the people have no alternative, once Zog can no longer provide for them, give them comfort, give them their basic needs, they will look for alternative sources. That's all. So after you kill the entire world, give people bread. Give people a tent, right? That's it. Fill the power vacuum. Their vision of a world. What motivates ideas and people to support ideas is a vision of a better world, which is why communism was so interesting to people, so palatable to people, because it's painted a picture of a better world. It's even why fascism is a picture of a better world to some people, right? You are not painting a picture of a better world by just saying target Zog, target the entire world, kill everybody, and then after fill the vacuum. But let's go to about me, to who this person was. Okay, he gives his Twitter information here. It says NTMA 0315. He, him, socialist, social nationalist, voting enjoyer, DNI, non-white, LGBTQA plus, Jewish, Stalin, TWT, Groip, TWT, opinions my own. I don't know if that's his Twitter handle. I don't know. I have no idea. All right, my name is not important. I'm sure sooner or later you will learn it. I was born in July 2003. Born in July 2003. This is a baby. This is a baby, man. And it's crazy. A lot of people love to talk about, oh, the younger generation is getting less racist. Every generation is getting less and less racist. They don't care about, white supremacy. They don't care about these ideas. How come so many young white men are literally becoming white supremacist terrorists, going out and killing people, from Dylan Roots to Peyton Gentrin to Brandon Tarrant to now Juraj of Slovak origin? Why? Why? The world is not getting less racist. White supremacy is continuing to rule the world, and it's infecting the minds of young white men. And it's scary, but we need to fight it. I am of Slovak origin with Croatian and Vojvodina Slovak in there as well. My life has been pretty average. It has ups and downs, lows and highs, moments of happiness and joy, but also sadness and depression. Friendship came and went. I switched schools once because of what I perceived as bullying, although that was just me being a P word and unable to handle jokes. Self-diagnosing various mental issues over the internet certainly didn't help. Overall, I would say that I have no big issues with how I lived my life. I've spent quite some time on the internet, starting with debating atheism versus religion and Roblox versus Minecraft in like 2014 or 2015. Well, debating as much as a literal 11-year-old could, which mostly consisted of throwing insults at each other. Everyone had some cringeworthy stuff they did as a kid, and I'm not different. In fact, atheism, agnosticism, or general irreligion was actually my first political stance that I took. As a child, my family decided to leave religion up to my decision. And with no forced church attendance or religious education, turns out I never became religious figures. In 2016, I supported Donald Trump, but again, the support was mostly because of the memes were funny and I liked them. In retrospect, I could consider myself a member of the alt-right, and my general dislike of religion, combined with my dislike of hypocrisies, made me averse to Islam, probably my first politically incorrect thought. Either way, this phase also ended quickly in 2017. My support was always token at best, and I was too young to understand a lot of it. All throughout this time until 2019, I dabbled in all sorts of ideologies and movements, and regrettably, even one or two fandoms, mostly at a surface level. I had an interest in the men's rights movement around 2016, again due to what I saw as perceived hypocrisies. My atheism, agnosticism never left me through these years. Some of the more unfortunate things I supported were gun control and general liberal politics in 2017, yet I maintained my dislike of Islam. Funny how that works. And even a brief few weeks stint at a pony F word, which thankfully went away quickly. I was a kid cruising the internet, picking up stuff along the way and throwing it away just as quickly. It all changed in May of 2019. So, there's a lot to say here about how this young person, born in 2003, and it was on the internet, around this time, 2014, 2015. I had to be around 11 years old. He grew up with the internet. We have a whole generation of people who are growing up on the internet. And it's debatable whether you want to say that's a good or a bad thing, but I think there is an inherent danger about allowing children to be on deep, dark websites like 4chan, like 8chan, and even some of the stuff you can find on Twitter. Some of the stuff you can find on Instagram. Some of the stuff you can find on Facebook. And of course, TikTok can lead young white men and other people down the path of radicalism, of horrible ideas, right? I am a part of that generation. I was born in 1990, right? So I didn't grow up all with the internet. But I remember going on Newgrounds. I remember going on Break. I remember being invited to Facebook. I remember the MySpace wave. I remember Friendster. I remember all that stuff. And I remember the beginnings of YouTube. I remember a lot of the stuff about the early internet because I grew up with it, but I didn't grow up on it, if that makes sense, right? I still watch cartoons, I still played outside, but I'm not trying to make this about old man me. What I'm trying to say is that there are so many things on the internet that can twist a young man's mind, and it seems like he got caught up in that spider web, right? You can have your views and beliefs that can be politically incorrect. A lot of people on the right are obsessed with this idea that the left is policing speech. You can have politically incorrect views, just do not resort to violence. It's that simple. You can dislike Islam, you can dislike black people, you can hate gay people, whatever, but make a valid argument for it. Have civil discourse. Let's debate. Let's actually talk. Or are you just going to be obsessed with conspiracy theories about Zog? Are you going to be obsessed with the idea that the world is holding you back? Isn't that what you accuse black people of thinking? You say black people always say that, the man is holding us down, or that we are being held back on purpose. And then you laugh and say there's no such thing as racism or anything like that while you continue to be racist. But what I'm saying is you guys act out all of the things that you accuse other people of, right? Brainwashing people. You guys have to put out memes and constant propaganda to try to make other young, dumb white men continue to commit these heinous acts of violence. You say that you can't get into office to actually affect the change that you want. You guys are obsessed with conspiracy theories that are self-centered, thinking that people are holding you down. It's not that. It's not that serious. You're a white man in the world. The world is literally your oyster. You can go anywhere. You can be anything you want. You just have to work hard. Isn't that what you tell the rest of the world? Work hard. Achieve your dreams. Do that. Instead, don't get sucked up into stupid internet culture, which causes you to crash out and lose your life. In 2022, born in 2003, died in 2022. Sick. It all changed in May of 2019. My main two inspirations to carry out an operation, and the main reason I even opened my eyes to the K words and their plans and decided to resist them, were Brenton Tarrant and John Ernest. In early May 2019, I had an interest in true crime content. So when I heard that someone massacred people in New Zealand, I was right on it. And that's where I saw the video for the first time. I was not fully red-pilled at the time, but I still maintained my dislike of Islam from the 2016 days. So I didn't feel much sympathy for the sand N-words. Yet the video was something else. It was truly unique. Maybe it was the fact that it was live streamed, or the video game-like view of the whole event, or just the general slaughter of 51 Muslim men, women, and children. I remember watching that video. I was living in Tunisia when the video of Brenton Tarrant came out, and I saw that video, and it really shook me to the core because at the time I was a very practicing Muslim, and I was going to the mosque quite often. And I had a high opinion about New Zealand, and I never, ever expected that a white supremacist attack would happen in New Zealand. In my country, in America, yes. Maybe some parts of Europe, like France, yes. But in New Zealand, I was shocked. And when I saw the video of how this man put a camera on a gun, walked up to an old Muslim man, shot him dead, walked into a mosque, started laying people down like it was Call of Duty, and saw literal babies go into a corner, cowering in a corner with other men, women, and children, and he laid and lit the whole mass of people balled up in this corner on fire with bullets. It broke my heart. It was horrible. And these sick white supremacist terrorists call Brenton Tarrant a saint. That shows you how they think. And these people are not a small minority. This is possibly millions of people online who are thinking like this. And they are too scared to actually go out and do what they say they want to do. This is why it's dangerous. because we don't know where these people will come from, when they will attack. And I'm not just trying to I'm not trying to cause you to be paranoid, and I don't have paranoid fantasies, but I'm actually talking about a real issue here. These people are writing manifestos. This is like the second one this year, right? We had Peyton Gentrin not too long ago in Buffalo do this, and now this guy in Slovakia do this. Some people will say, well, it's only 12 people in total killed. It could be more. 51 people didn't have to lose their lives in New Zealand. 10 people in Buffalo didn't have to. These 2 people in Bratislava didn't have to. All lives are supposed to matter, right? It's all lives matter, right? Well, every single life killed by white supremacist terrorists matters, right? I'll continue. The video felt different to most other content that I had seen before. Still, at the time, my views didn't really change much, but I was now aware of this 8chan website and wondered what made it different. Still, I did not begin using it until a month or so later, after St. Ernest. I'm not familiar with Ernest. I refuse to call him a saint. When he posted his manifesto on the same website as St. Terence, 8chan, I decided to check out what made the website so special. And from there, I was never the same. In just a few weeks, I learned so much there. It completely changed my view of the world. Yet most importantly of all, from day one, I was never under the illusion that a political solution to the problems I learned about on the website was possible. That was important. I had skipped the long phase of indecision, belief in voting for Trump or red herring politicians and other such nonsense. Why are people, let me not say this. Let me not say why are people so obsessed with American politics, because American politics are unique because they have global impact, right? So I'm not going to say, obviously, it's stupid for you to support a candidate in a country you can't even vote in. It doesn't make sense. That's dumb. But I understand what he means when he says supporting Trump, as in the ideas of Trump, advocating for Trump, gonna post memes and shit post for Trump and all this sort of stuff. But once again, Trump did a lot of damage. For anybody who's going to say Trump was a red herring or Trump was controlled by Zog or all of that stuff, Trump was pretty bad. And Trump is still pretty bad. He denied the election, caused an insurrection, caused a lot of violence across America. People have literally died trying to support him. What was her name? Ashley Babbitt tried to climb through the windows of Congress and got her brains blown out because of that, right? Many other people have gone to jail because of Trump, because of he incited them to go to the Capitol. I mean, just looking at the damage Trump has done to Trump supporters is enough to say he can cause a lot of damage, and how white supremacy and hatred can fuel people just to crash out and destroy their lives. But what I'm saying here, at least in his views about giving up on the political system, I can understand and sympathize with this view a lot. I do not agree with it. There should be a way to have civil discourse and a political solution for any of our problems. I do not believe in violence. I can sympathize with this idea, though, because as a young person, I flirted with the idea of radical black nationalist liberation ideas. Everybody who seriously thinks about and contemplates the situation of black Americans, global white supremacy, and global anti-blackness has to consider at one point, could a violent struggle overthrow the rule of white supremacy, literal white supremacy, such as colonialism, apartheid South Africa, Jim Crow America? Could a violent resolution end the oppression of black people and all oppressed people worldwide? And the answer quickly, if you seriously contemplate it, is no. You can come to that conclusion within the same time you have that thought. No. It doesn't make sense to try to solve violence with violence. There has to be a political solution, a way of having civil discourse to reach a solution. And by the way, we got our freedom. We were free from colonialism, by and large, without violence. We were free from apartheid in South Africa, by and large, without violence. We were free from Jim Crow America, by and large, without violence. We were free from slavery, generally, at least on our part, black Americans, by and large, without violence. It took white people committing violence against other white people, generally, to free us from slavery in America. So by and large, what I'm saying here is that most things cannot be solved with violence. Violence only begets more violence. Right? I'll continue here. Despite 8chan's removal not long after I joined the aftermath of St. Crucius's strike, the site continues to live on as a source of inspiration for thousands who took the red pill and subsequently the action pill in the mimetic warfare and book threads, the shit posts and other effort posts, the debates and infographic dumps. 8chan may be gone, but his influence continues to propagate forward, and they will continue to propagate for a long time. Since 2019, I have slowly been preparing, gathering targets, researching and monitoring them, reading about tactics and strategies. My targets switched as both the global situation and my personal knowledge evolved. Yet my desire to strike against the Zog has always remained. What was missing was my courage. I could have struck at any time. I had numerous opportunities, yet I was, to say it frankly, a pussy. Even as I understood more and more how dire the situation was becoming, I always had some excuses to justify my own inaction. Was a pussy, and still are a pussy, and I hope you are a pussy in hell. The final nail in the coffin was Peyton Gendron. His live stream gave me new inspiration, a new impulse to do what had to be done after years of procrastination. And in Gendron, I saw myself, a young man with his whole life ahead, who decided to fight for something bigger than himself, who fought for what he believed in. He had the same feelings that many others before him, and he took it. In May of this year, I began writing this document and seriously preparing myself for carrying out a strike against Zog. Saint Gendron gave me the final nudge, allowing me to overcome my own indecision and begin seriously working towards carrying out an operation. As for my ideology, it's hard to say. Shitposting and trolling are my favorites, but perhaps removing traitors will surpass that. The most accurate description of my ideology would probably be racial nationalism, exclusively focused on the white European race. Now, I want to stop here. I remember when Peyton Gendron, the Buffalo shooter, killed 10 black people in Buffalo. I remember when that happened, and I said explicitly, this will happen again. He will inspire more people, and it has happened. I didn't think it would happen this soon, as in this year, because usually there's like a gap year or, at least another 6 or 12 months before this happens again. But of course, it happened again this year, and it will happen again because these young white men are obsessed with the idea that they are losing power, and they want to fight back no matter what to regain power. Now, I think we've already covered why he did this, why he wanted to waste his life. It's all a bunch of BS here, continued on this manuscript. Once again, my wife told me not to read this stuff or care about this stuff, but I just want to say that I'm putting my energy into this and reading all of this nonsense here to point out how big of a problem this is. These people are everywhere. These people are obsessed. Young white men are the most dangerous people on the planet. That's not a racist comment. I'm not trying to stoke hatred against white people. But young white men who grew up on the internet, who grew up on 4chan, 8chan, Twitter, Instagram, and all this stuff, are the most dangerous people on the planet. Because not only are they obsessed with trying to, young white men who become influenced by these ideas, they are obsessed with committing violence to further their aims. They also could become groypers. They become Nick Fuentes. They become Tucker Carlson. They become propagators of these ideas in a more mainstream, buttoned up suit and tie fashion. And that's also what's dangerous. Young white men, I'm begging you. I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading with you right now, guys. Chill. Please just chill. Okay? It's not that serious. It's not that serious. If you don't like the way the world is going, just remember this. In ancient Greece, there was a time when the teachers would take the young boys and have sex with them. That was in the golden age of Greece. Aristotle and all the other ancient philosophers that we hold in high regard now practiced pedestry. They practiced teaching young men by having sex with young men and committing sexual acts on young men. In ancient Rome, the same thing. All the degeneracy that you guys are obsessed with now has existed in European society since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of time, we have been traveling. The world is becoming more and more interconnected and globalized, and that will not stop. So, this idea that darker skinned people are just now coming into white society and wreaking havoc on it, it's absolutely not true. And Jewish people are only about, what, 10, 20 million of them on the planet. They are not the richest people in the world. They are not the most powerful people in the world. They do not control everything. You have to stop. You have to stop with all of this nonsense. Stop taking these pills, red pill, black pill, hate pill, any of these pills, and get a life. Please. My name is Simon Hill. Thank you for watching.